Most people think the Great Pyramid's biggest secrets are hidden inside. They're looking in the wrong direction. The mystery begins below. Nearly 100 feet beneath the pyramid lies a chamber most visitors never hear about, and nobody fully understands it. Unlike the King's Chamber, this room wasn't built with massive blocks. It was carved directly into solid rock. That's strange, because carving downward into bedrock is far harder than building upward with stone blocks. If this chamber wasn't important, why spend years digging so deeply beneath the world's largest monument? The mystery grows worse because no pharaoh was ever found buried inside this chamber. No treasure, no royal coffin, no inscriptions explaining why the room exists, just unanswered questions. Then, researchers noticed something even stranger hidden at the chamber's lowest point. A deep, unfinished pit disappears into bedrock, as if the builders planned to keep going. And that creates a terrifying question. If this wasn't the final chamber, what were they trying to reach? The pit stops suddenly. No tunnel, no treasure, no hidden room, just solid rock. And that's the problem. Ancient builders excavated nearly 100 feet underground, then abandoned the project without finishing the deepest section. That makes no sense. Egyptian builders were famous for completing projects that lasted thousands of years. So why leave one of the pyramid's deepest spaces unfinished while everything above it was completed? Some researchers believe the original burial plan changed during construction. But that theory creates another mystery. If the burial location changed, why wasn't the underground chamber completely sealed and forgotten? Because the chamber remained connected to the pyramid through a descending passage still visible today. Anyone entering the pyramid could eventually reach this forgotten room buried beneath the desert. Then another detail appeared, one that made the chamber seem even less accidental than before. Because researchers discovered evidence suggesting this chamber may have been planned from the very beginning. That's impossible to ignore, because the underground chamber sits directly beneath the pyramid's central axis. In other words, the builders knew exactly where this room would be before construction even began. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't random. The chamber was part of the design from day one. And suddenly, the biggest question changes, not why it exists, but why it was abandoned. Some experts point to a surprising clue hidden in the chamber's rough, unfinished walls. The deeper sections appear less refined than the passages leading toward them, almost as if work stopped suddenly. But no record describes a disaster, collapse, or emergency that forced construction to end. The silence is strange. Egyptian builders documented remarkable achievements, yet this mystery remains unexplained. Then, modern technology revealed something that brought researchers back to the underground chamber once again. Because hidden spaces inside the pyramid suggested the ancient structure may still be keeping secrets. Today, scientists can scan stone without touching it, yet the chamber beneath the pyramid remains stubbornly mysterious. More than 45 centuries after construction, experts still cannot explain exactly why this room was created. But the underground chamber isn't the strangest feature here, because higher inside the pyramid, another mystery points toward nowhere. Inside the Great Pyramid are 4 narrow shafts. 2 are visible. 2 were hidden for thousands of years. At first, archaeologists assumed they were simple ventilation channels. That explanation seemed reasonable until measurements began. Because some shafts don't reach the outside at all, they simply stop inside the pyramid. That creates an immediate problem. A ventilation shaft that doesn't ventilate isn't really a ventilation shaft. And suddenly, one of Egypt's most accepted explanations begins falling apart. The shafts are astonishingly narrow, in some places barely large enough for a person to enter. Yet builders extended them dozens of meters through millions of stone blocks with remarkable precision. That's extraordinary, because a tiny mistake would have sent the shaft completely off course. Then researchers noticed something even stranger. The shafts appeared deliberately aligned towards specific stars. And if that alignment was intentional, these shafts may have served a purpose far beyond airflow. Ancient Egyptians believed certain stars were connected to the afterlife, and some shaft alignments appear far too precise. One shaft appears linked to Orion, another may point towards stars associated with eternal kingship. If true, these passages weren't moving air. They may have been guiding something else entirely. That idea sounds extraordinary, but the real mystery begins at the end of one shaft. In 1993, a robot entered a shaft too small for humans and found something unexpected. After traveling nearly 60 meters, the robot reached a tiny stone door blocking the passage. A door, deep inside a sealed shaft where no human had entered for over 4,000 years. That discovery shocked researchers worldwide, because doors usually protect something located behind them. And what made the door even stranger were two small copper handles attached to its surface. A sealed door, hidden handles deep inside the pyramid, and nobody knew what waited beyond it. For nearly 10 years, the tiny door remained unopened. The mystery only grew larger with time. Then, engineers built a new robot capable of drilling through the door without damaging it. Everyone expected a hidden chamber, a treasure room, perhaps even a secret burial site. Instead, the robot discovered something almost nobody predicted: another door waiting behind the first. That changed everything, because one hidden door can be accidental. Two hidden doors suggest a plan. Someone wanted this passage sealed, not once, but twice, deep inside the pyramid. And that's where the mystery becomes difficult to explain using ordinary construction theories. Ventilation systems don't need secret doors. Air doesn't require copper handles or sealed chambers. The deeper researchers investigated, the less the ventilation explanation seemed to fit the evidence. Then another discovery suggested the Great Pyramid might contain spaces nobody has entered for thousands of years. In 2017, scientists announced something astonishing. A massive hidden void existed inside the Great Pyramid. The space appears larger than a passenger airplane, yet nobody knows exactly why it was built. But if hidden voids exist above the pyramid, what other secrets could still be concealed inside its walls? In 1837, explorers entered a hidden chamber inside the Great Pyramid and found something nobody expected. Not treasure, not gold, not royal artifacts. Instead, they found several mysterious stone spheres. At first glance, the objects looked ordinary, but archaeologists quickly realized they didn't belong there, because nobody could explain why carefully shaped stone balls were hidden inside a sealed chamber. And the spheres weren't alone. They were discovered beside other strange objects with no clear purpose. One was a metal hook. Another appeared to be part of a wooden instrument. Together, the objects became known as the Dixon Relics, and their purpose remains uncertain today. That's surprising, because these artifacts were found inside one of the most studied monuments on Earth. Yet after more than a century of investigation, experts still disagree about what the relics were used for. And one recent discovery made the mystery even stranger than anyone expected. In 2020, researchers examined one of the wooden relics using modern technology. The results shocked them. The wood appeared far older than many experts expected, potentially dating back to the pyramid's construction era. That changed everything, because the relics might not be later intrusions, they may be original. If that's true, the next question becomes unavoidable. Why were these objects hidden inside sealed shafts? The shafts were never designed for storage. They were too narrow and too difficult to access. And that's what makes the discovery so strange. The objects appear completely out of place. Some researchers think they were construction tools accidentally left behind by ancient workers. It's a practical explanation, but nobody can explain why multiple objects were left together. Others believe the relics served a ceremonial purpose connected to the pyramid itself. But once again, there's a problem. No ancient text mentions the relics or explains their purpose. That's unusual because the Great Pyramid is one of the most documented structures in human history. Yet 3 mysterious objects discovered inside the monument still have no universally accepted explanation. And then another mystery appeared. One of the relics vanished. For decades, researchers believed the wooden fragment had been lost forever. Then, more than a century later, someone found it sitting unnoticed inside a museum collection. The artifact had survived all along, hidden in plain sight. That discovery allowed scientists to do something impossible before: test the artifact directly. And the results suggested the relic may have originated during the age of the pyramid itself. Suddenly, the Dixon Relics became more than curiosities. They became direct links to the pyramid's builders. But one question remains unanswered. Why were these objects placed inside the shafts at all? Were they forgotten tools, ritual objects, or evidence of something researchers still don't understand? More than 4,000 years later, nobody can answer that question with certainty. But the strangest mystery may not be hidden inside the pyramid at all, because the ground beneath Giza may conceal secrets even older than the monument itself. Most visitors believe the King's Chamber is the final destination inside the Great Pyramid. They're wrong, because the real mystery begins above its ceiling. Hidden overhead are 5 secret chambers almost nobody knew existed for thousands of years, and those chambers contain some of the heaviest stones anywhere inside the pyramid. Each granite beam weighs up to 70 tons. That's heavier than a modern battle tank. The blocks weren't quarried near Giza. They came from Aswan, more than 500 miles away. Moving stones that heavy across Egypt was already a challenge. Lifting them high into the pyramid seems even harder. And that's where the mystery begins. Because the giant granite beams are hidden above a room nobody was ever supposed to see. The chambers remained unknown until 1837, when explorer Howard Weiss blasted his way into the space above the King's Chamber. What he found shocked everyone. 1 chamber became 2, 2 became 3. Eventually, 5 hidden chambers were discovered, stacked above one another. That was strange, because no other room inside the pyramid received this treatment. The official explanation sounds simple. The granite beams were designed to protect the King's Chamber from the enormous weight of the pyramid above. It's a reasonable idea, but some engineers aren't completely convinced, because the amount of granite used appears excessive. The builders didn't install 1 layer of protection, they installed multiple chambers separated by gigantic stone beams, and each level required transporting more massive blocks hundreds of miles from their source. That raises an uncomfortable question. Why invest so much effort protecting a single room hidden deep inside the pyramid? Then, researchers noticed another mystery carved onto the chamber walls: red markings. Construction marks painted by ancient workers more than 4,000 years ago. Most are simple symbols and quarry marks, but one inscription became famous around the world because it appears to contain the name of Pharaoh Khufu himself. For many historians, that single inscription is critical evidence linking Khufu directly to the Great Pyramid. But not everyone agrees. Some researchers argue the markings raise almost as many questions as they answer, because very few inscriptions exist anywhere inside the pyramid, and yet one of the most important names appears inside a chamber nobody was meant to enter. Today, the granite beams remain exactly where ancient builders placed them. The hidden chambers remain silent, and engineers still debate whether their only purpose was structural support. Because if protecting the King's Chamber was the goal, the builders may have created one of the most elaborate engineering systems in the ancient world. But another mystery may be even stranger, because recent discoveries suggest the ground beneath Giza could contain structures older than the pyramids themselves. Most people think the Great Pyramid is the oldest mystery at Giza. They may be looking at the wrong thing. Because the greatest secret may not be inside the pyramid. It may be hidden beneath it. Ancient travelers described tunnels, chambers, and passageways beneath the plateau centuries before modern archaeology existed. Most historians dismissed those stories as legends until unusual discoveries began appearing underground. That's because Giza wasn't built on solid stone alone. Beneath the surface lies a maze of natural limestone formations. Some of those formations are ancient, far older than the pyramids themselves. And that raises a fascinating question. Did the builders discover these spaces, or did they choose Giza because of them? The idea sounds extraordinary, but ancient Egyptians often selected sacred locations for specific reasons. Some ancient creation myths describe a sacred underground realm connected to the beginning of the world itself. And if those stories contain even a fragment of truth, the pyramids may have been built above something far more important than anyone realized. That possibility has fascinated explorers for centuries, because stories of hidden chambers beneath Giza never completely disappeared. Ancient Greek writers described vast underground spaces hidden somewhere beneath the pyramids. Most accounts were dismissed as exaggerations, but some details appeared again and again. Hidden tunnels, buried halls, chambers sealed beneath the desert floor. Then another legend appeared, one that would become famous around the world: the Hall of Records. According to the legend, a hidden repository of knowledge was buried somewhere beneath the plateau, a place containing information lost to history. If it exists, nobody has ever proven it. Most archaeologists reject the Hall of Records entirely. They argue there is no direct evidence supporting the claim. But even skeptics agree on one thing: large portions of the plateau remain unexplored. That creates a surprising problem. How do you explore what lies beneath one of the world's most important archaeological sites? Digging everywhere isn't an option. One mistake could damage evidence that survived for thousands of years. So researchers turned to technology, and what they discovered raised even more questions. Ground-penetrating radar revealed unusual anomalies beneath parts of the plateau. Not all of them were natural, at least not according to every interpretation. Some appeared surprisingly regular, almost as if they followed deliberate patterns. That doesn't prove hidden structures exist, but it does make researchers pay attention, because nature creates caves, but nature doesn't always create symmetry. Then another mystery emerged. Some anomalies appeared close to major monuments, and that raised an uncomfortable question. Were the pyramids built here because of what already existed below? It's a question archaeologists still can't answer, because nobody knows exactly what the builders knew before construction began. Yet the location wasn't chosen randomly. The Great Pyramid sits on one of the most stable bedrock foundations in Egypt. That stability helped the pyramid survive earthquakes, storms, and thousands of years of erosion. But ancient Egyptians may have valued the location for another reason entirely. Some creation myths describe a sacred mound emerging from primordial waters at the beginning of time, and some scholars believe the Giza Plateau may have symbolized that sacred place. If that's true, then Giza wasn't simply a construction site. It was part of a larger spiritual design. And that possibility changes how we see the entire pyramid complex. Because the pyramids may not be isolated monuments, they may be pieces of a much larger puzzle. And that puzzle remains incomplete even after centuries of exploration. For more than 4,500 years, people have searched for the Great Pyramid's ultimate secret. Every generation believed it was finally close to the answer, yet every discovery created new questions instead of final answers. The underground chamber, the hidden shafts, the forgotten relics, the giant granite beams. None of them fully explain why the pyramid was built, and none of them solve the mystery completely. Because the deeper researchers investigate, the more complicated the story becomes. Perhaps that is the real secret of the Great Pyramid. Not that it hides answers, but that it continues creating questions. A monument so ancient, so vast, and so complex that every generation sees it differently. And even today, after 4.5 millennia, the Great Pyramid of Giza remains exactly what it has always been: the world's greatest unsolved mystery.